Welcome. It's good to be with you. We're going to start with a quick centering, and then we're going to go into the space of talking about addiction. So as we go into the centering, I would love for you to consider a few things in the introspection. The first is just doing some ancestral lineage inventory of how addiction has affected your family. We all know that there is at least there is a hereditary aspect to addiction that leaves us more vulnerable to addiction. I'm happy to go into the spiritual aspects and hypotheses that I have. Maybe it's a DNA thing, maybe it's nurture versus nature. Maybe there's a spiritual lineage energy that has been passed down through the lineage. But that's the first thing that I'd love for you to be able to just go inward and introspect. And when we talk about addiction, I would also love for you, when you go inward, to really open the question of what you may have become addicted to, meaning what has replaced your inner connection in your life. Okay, it could be Facebook, or it could be TikTok, or it could be any of the other addictive technologies that we've encountered. So it could be a technological addiction. It could be a food addiction. It could be a relationship addiction. With marijuana becoming legalized, I'm seeing that a lot of people are smoking pot all day long or throughout the week, even though it's not an addictive substance chemically. So there's a lot now in our society, and we're becoming a little bit more tolerant or accepting. Whereas before we saw alcohol, you're an alcoholic, and like we had this picture of addiction. But in my experience, in my opinion, in being in addiction recovery myself for 32 years, what I've come to realize is that a majority of Americans at this point have some level of addiction. And what I want to bring presence and awareness to is where you've lost connection to yourself and focused your bliss body externally outsourced bliss in your life, or the hit that you've been going for. So if we in our generation don't get really clear about this, then the generation that we're raising, that has been essentially raised in addiction, and easier routes for addiction, whether it be technology addiction or vaping or whatever it is that's easily available, it's there. And we're the generation that will be able to bring the wisdom, hopefully, to bridge to this next generation. And that's my vision. I think especially, I don't mean to call this out, but I think teenage boys especially, and as a mother, watching other mothers with teenage boys has been a little heartbreaking, as the communication can break down. So this is something that just lives heavy in my heart, because I have been through my own addiction recovery through bulimia, and I was hospitalized for 99 days, which was the biggest gift I ever received, because that started my recovery path. And just recently have identified as being in continuous recovery. I know that a lot of people with eating stuff they see it like, well, I'm eating and I'm fine. But I believe once we have addiction patterns, we will often continuously have them pop up in different ways. So if you will, join me in closing your eyes and coming into your breath in your body. And as you breathe into your upper belly, into your diaphragm, exhale nice and slowly. Another deep breath here. Taking your breath even deeper into your tailbone, legs, and feet, and exhale down into the core of the earth. Inhale, if you will, from the core of the earth through your feet. up your spine, through the top of your head. And now exhale, if you will, up to source, sending your breath straight up to divine source, the sun, the divine beings, whatever it is that you connect to that's higher and greater than you. Breathe in from that space above, down into your head, filling yourself with that white light. And as you inhale, just draw it into every cell. Send it into your DNA that carries all the codes, your healing codes, your addiction codes, whatever it is, you can turn on and off whatever you'd like. So exhale the light deep into your DNA. Inhaling into your heart. And as you breathe into that soul flame, draw out of it the violet consuming flame. Exhaling the violet flame into the space around you. Allowing it to purify your field. Allowing it to solidify the outer edges of your energy field. And as you hold yourself in this transmuting fire, just allow it to continue to ripple from your heart out into your field like a mosquito zapper, just purifying, transmuting, alchemizing whatever addiction patterns might be there. And as you breathe into the space of what you've been going to feel good, to make you feel safe or secure, whether that's your bank account numbers, or to feel connected to yourself or to other people, sex, food, shopping, or to feel worthy, valuable, motivated, occupied, technology, whatever, working too much to occupy yourself. Whatever you've been going outside of yourself for love, for care, to feel loved, whether you're loving others to get the love. What you've been going for in order to feel like you matter, to feel seen, to feel good and seen. What you've been going for outside of yourself that has connected you to divine wisdom, divine connection, whether that's substance, plant medicine, whether you're addicted to your meditation as an escape. Just scan yourself for what you've looked outside of yourself for. And if you will, offer that up in this moment without needing to fix it or change it or feel broken or judge yourself. Just place it on the altar. straight into that violet consuming flame, that campfire, the altar, whatever it is. Offer it up. And in your offering, feel the divine taking that from you, carrying the burden for and with you. For you to continue working on trusting that breaking an addiction pattern has to do with the neurosynaptic wiring and the hormonal rewiring, neurotransmitter rewiring, trusting that the spiritual aspect of releasing addiction can go along with the actual physical behavioral changes. So as you feel yourself handing it over, surrendering it into the hands of Divine Source, allow yourself to see your ancestors, your family lineage, also throwing their baggage, their addictions, their pains and burdens into that sacred fire. As you do this for yourself, you do it for your lineage. And as the light worker in your lineage, as the one showing up doing the spiritual work on behalf of your ancestral lineage, just offer up a prayer of forgiveness to release the cords, the karma that's been created through these addiction patterns. Divine, for me and my entire male and female lineage, throughout all time, past, present, and future. Please help us to release all addictive patterns. Please help us to forgive all people. Please help all people to forgive us. Please help us to forgive each other. Please help each of us to forgive ourselves. Please help us to be at peace with all people. Please help us to be at peace with ourselves. Please help us to love all people. Please help us to love ourselves. Please, Divine. Thank you, Divine. And as you hold here, just allow yourself to sit in that sacred violet fire that carries the divine love, power, and wisdom to transmute all of the karma and the interference that the addiction patterns have brought through your family and the damage that was created. And allow yourself to see the family lineage restored back to the wisdom of who they are, their divine selves. The love that each of them are. And the power they have in the addiction to be able to create new behavioral patterns and to release the interference so they can feel their power again. And as you exhale, just allow the violet flame to continue working and place yourself into the space of receiving wisdom straight from your guides, your higher source, your higher consciousness. And as you breathe in, just receive whatever whispers that your guides have been trying to help you see or hear on your path of your own healing and recovery. Divine, speak to me, show me and tell me the truth here, now. Just continue receiving and listening. And then, if you will, just set an intention or a vision as it relates to bringing the bliss body back within, pulling all of our power back to us, releasing the external source for love or comfort or feeling like we're loved or we're matter, we're safe, we're calm or grounded, whatever it is that got focused externally. Just set the intention of what that might look like with your being fully sovereign, fully free from anything, any distractions or substances, anything that you've made God or bliss that was outside of yourself. Pull it back in and imagine what it feels like to be free, sovereign, self-sustaining of your own bliss and love. Take a deep breath as you envision this and feel it in your body. Deep breath in, long exhale out. Again, breathing in, feeling this free, sovereign, whole, self-sustained bliss. Lock it into your bones, lock it into your body. See yourself completely free, cords cut between you and whatever it is outside of you that you thought held your bliss, or your comfort, or your safety, or your love or your connection. And as you anchor it into your body, you can say, and so it is. And so it is already done. And so it is done. And then hold right here and hand it over and say, not my will, divine, not my small mind's will, but thy will, which invites source to fill in the blanks for your intention. Because, we have grand visions, but only the universe knows what's fully possible. And so when you allow divine source to fill in the blanks, life starts to get juicy, and all of that juice that we were looking for from that shopping spree or from that marijuana or from that whatever is so piped straight into ourselves that we never, ever have to look outside of ourselves for our connection to ourselves ever again. And that is my hope. And I think as you start to come out of this centering, what I ask is for you to spend some time over the next week just watching whether the gluten-free bagel feels like it's going to give you your comfort, or watching how that frozen fruit smoothie or the glass of wine on a Friday night is going to give you that whatever, that juice that you've been looking for because your life is so dry and hard. Start to watch the patterns of putting your joy off till a certain point, or putting your happiness to a certain given time frame where you share a substance or an experience, and allow that to be a daily hit that you can take whenever you want, in the middle of your workday, in the bathroom. Because ideally, that's what we're going for. For me personally, my personal practice is a good hour and a half, and it's not a have to. It's not I have to do my practices. It's like, I'm going to go connect with myself in a really blissful way so the rest of my day can feel blissful. That's what my meditative and yogic practice is. It's let me go get into my fifth dimensional higher experience, and then literally spread that like wildfire just by my showing up. And then I get a hit off of the experience of other people in their heart, because any substance or behavior that we're using to get high is very typically because we want to connect with love. When they've done substance abuse research, the people are essentially lacking a sense of safety and connection, secure attachment, secure connection. That's all those who struggle with addiction are looking for. So if you have a small a addiction, we'll call it, take a look at what you're going for in that moment. Just pause and say, oh, I was feeling X and I thought I was going to get Y. Interesting. How might I be Y? How might I generate that high within myself? So, as I said, this is something that I'm seeing everywhere. And maybe in the 80s and 90s, people were more apt to say, oh, if you have an addiction, you go to AA, you go to Alcoholics Anonymous. But what I'm finding as people raise their consciousness spiritually, we don't want to categorize ourselves into the bucket of addiction. And hey, I am the first person to take those buckets and categorizations away and take the duality of black and white away. I'm the first person. You don't hear me really getting on the bandwagon of, oh, the husband was the narcissist and you're the, like I take away those labels, because labels will demonize a certain group of people, or it will categorize someone into brokenness. And so I don't like those categories. And in New Age spirituality, or even in any spirituality, there is often the moving away from those categorizations. However, The label of addiction, in my opinion, is an absolutely critical aspect of healing and recovery. And noticing the addiction and just naming it, calling it what it is, in my opinion, the first step in the recovery process. When I was 15 years old and bulimic and not able to choose when I was doing that behavior, I saw, crap, I'm not in control of this anymore. I stomped myself right over to Four Winds Psychiatric Hospital and I checked myself in. And they kept me there for 99 days and I came out the other side without addictive behavior. However, I spent the next 30 some odd years healing myself of the thoughts and the emotions and the energetics and the physical behaviors and the nervous system dysregulation. I healed after my addiction stopped. But in my opinion, you can't be maintaining an addiction and be in the healing process. One absolutely has to come before the other starts. The addiction needs to clear before we can really do the deeper healing. So in my inner alignment work, I won't take on people who have an active addiction unless healing the addiction becomes the focus of the 2-month intensive work. Why? Because my work in soul retrieval is to get the soul tethered back in the body. And anytime we go into addictive behavior, the soul will often pop out of the body. So when I have people who are smoking pot every day or drinking every day or going into narcissistic abuse behavior every day or really losing themselves in the addiction, I need the addiction healed before I can tether. Otherwise, we tether the soul back in and then the soul pops back out. And then we tether the soul back in. It's like a game of whack-a-mole. So this, in my work, having done this work for a long time now, has become clear that healing the addiction is really the first and most important step of our emotional or personal healing process. Now, often I'm the one exposing that there's an addiction. I'll look at someone's history and be like, okay, so everyone in your family was an alcoholic or some type of addict. Yes. Okay. And you're still drinking 4 times a week? Yes. Okay. Well, why? Why would we play with fire in that way? Right? Why would we keep the addictive substance that kept us all in all kinds of childhood trauma? Why would that be something that's still allowed in the family lineage? Okay, maybe they haven't found the gene of addiction yet. They haven't found the gene, but it's pretty consistent in a lineage that if there's alcohol addiction, it will continue, or it'll show up as some other addiction. So I wasn't an alcoholic, but I had eating addiction. And then about 11 years ago, I decided, why do I still drink? Why would I even have that in my life still? You don't see any gurus who drink or get high or, right? Like, why on my path of awakening and my path toward enlightenment, would that be something that's still in there? So Dr. Frawley, who in Vasant Lad, who are both Ayurvedic experts in the fields currently, will say that we want to protect our senses. So part of protecting our senses is, what technology are we exposing ourselves to? What substances are we exposing ourselves to? Right? How are we indulging in that which is outside of us to bring ourselves our own inner bliss? So even though I've been recovered from an eating disorder for over 32, almost 33 years, I will still watch myself anytime like I'm around sugar, like an acai bowl, a frozen fruit bowl. Once the frozen fruit bowl starts to take up some thoughts space in my life, I start to reevaluate my relationship with that frozen fruit bowl. It's a healthy thing, but only I know how the addictive pattern is starting to creep up. So what I really wanted to do today is to reinforce what I believe is the only system that I have witnessed that can systematically help people, which is the 12 steps. I had recently explored, I'm like, maybe I should develop an inner alignment program for recovery. And so I pulled out the 12 steps of AA. And while AA can be a little past focused or a little negative focused or a little old school, I know I've heard lots of criticisms of how the demographic maybe may not fit and needs to be, there need to be other options. Let me just spend 10 minutes reviewing the wisdom of this system that has worked. Really one of the few mental health strategies that, in my opinion, has worked for a very long time. And when you look at it, the essence of it is really, in my opinion, profound. We admit we are powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. Meaning I am in a habit where even if I want to pull myself back into myself, I find myself thinking or indulging in something that I say I really don't want to be indulging in that much, whether it be TikTok or whatever it is. So we as yogis don't like to say that we're powerless, but there is this thing called interference energy that runs through lineages and gets stuck in our energy field. And the truth is, so long as this energy is allowed to hang out in our field, it will run the show as a pain body living through us, as a psychic parasite that lives through us. Eckhart Tolle talks about this very overtly in A New Earth. So any lineage of addiction has a pain body or a psychic parasite that lives within the field that's allowed to live in the field by the indulgence in the addictive behavior. So I don't want to get spooky or woo-woo, but the truth is, so long as addiction's in the field, there is an energetic parasite in the field that lives through your addiction to that substance. And I'm really talking about big A addiction now: alcoholism, drug addiction, substance addiction. So we are generally powerless so long as we allow that addictive energy to live in our field and allow it to decide for us what our mind chews on or what our emotions or our energy field allows in it. So powerlessness does apply, in my opinion. Even though I preach, I am powerful, I am presence, so long as the addiction is allowed to be in my space, it will have power through my thoughts, through my emotions, just as Eckhart Tolle talks about the pain body as an energetic parasite, a psychic parasite. I came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So in order for us to come back into our power, we need to claim our divine power. Now, that doesn't have to be some gray-haired God in the sky, male God in the sky. It can be our Christ presence within. But there is a handing over of the ego. I've got this. I can have a drink and keep everything in control. That's the ego. And as long as the ego is driving, we're powerless. But when the soul or the heart or the Christ presence or the divine presence within, I would say not handing it over out there, but it's like switching who's in the driver's seat is how I see it, which is critical. We need a divine presence. We made a decision to turn our will and the lives of our will over to the divine as we understand. So it says God as we understand him. So that's going to turn off anybody with religious trauma. But the way I would interpret that without religious trauma is I am turning my life over to my soul or heart or Christ or divine presence within as I understand my divine belief system. So whether you're Hindu or Buddhist or yogic or Christian, it doesn't matter. The truth is that there is a higher aspect in our energy field, our own I am presence, our higher consciousness, and we are turning the whole decision-making power of our interaction with this substance to our divine presence within, so that the interference energy that's working through our ego presence doesn't have the power. Our divine presence within us has the power. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Okay, so typically with addiction, we're not taking responsibility. We're not in our own responsibility for 100% of everything that we attract in our lives. And because we're not taking responsibility and seeing 100% attraction, right? 100% responsibility for everything we attract through resonance and law of attraction, we need to take inventory and get ourselves in check to see, right? So that inventory of cause and effect of where we've hurt ourselves or where we've hurt other people, it lifts the hood so we can see our shadow aspects. So we can see how the ego has had an effect on our lack of connection or our lack of love or our lack of safety. It's basically attracted more of what I didn't have, right? So that inventory is critical, not so we can beat ourselves or feel awful about ourselves, but so that we can start to come back into the attraction, law of attraction. We've admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. So this is about community and communal accountability. So I always say my husband keeps me accountable. My kids keep me accountable. Community, my spiritual community keeps me accountable. It's the mirror. If we have no mirrors, if we have no people and we're just sitting in the Himalayan mountains in our own little head, we don't have that mirror. We don't have that external accountability. So I know I've gotten pitta imbalance. When I find myself biting people's heads off, I have to say, I'm sorry, be accountable for it. Let that be the mirror. And then I have to clean that up and heal that with the people around me, right? So by admitting to the divine, to ourselves, to others, oh, I've been a bitch, or my addiction has affected you badly. We get to heal. We get to heal the relationships within ourselves, within source. Sorry, divine, I just bailed. And with the people around us. So being in the field of childhood trauma, I can only imagine that the children of alcoholics whose father looked at them and said, I am so sorry. I have totally fucked up here. Please forgive me. Because forgiveness is how we can heal relationships. We have the Ho'oponopono prayer. We have these forgiveness prayers. Why? Because we hold beef, because we've damaged our relationships with people, right? We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects. Well, okay, these are shadow qualities, and we're saying, I want to live in my heart. I want to live with my alignment with my soul. And we humbly ask him, we ask the divine within ourselves to transmute our shadow and our addiction and our low consciousness, which is step 7. And we make a list of everyone we've harmed, and we make amends. Like, hey, I'm sorry, I did this to you. What can I do to heal this relationship? Esther Perel does a lot of research on relationships where people have cheated. And essentially, the healing can only happen when the person who did the abuse or did the betrayal takes responsibility, apologizes, and then this person who was the victim in the relationship doesn't have to carry it anymore. So it's really pulling the responsibility onto self and saying, how can I heal this? How can I restore love in this relationship? Because saying, oh, sorry, and spiritually bypassing it and doing a few forgiveness prayers may not be enough. Making direct amends, except when to do so would injure or harm others, continuing to take the personal inventory when we were wrong and promptly admitting it, 100% responsibility. That's important when we have a psychic parasite in our field, Because if we're not saying, oh, I did this and here is the effect, and we're really anchored in the reality of cause and effect, then we're not seeing the effect of the interference energy that's damaging everything and creating chaos around us. So the personal responsibility allows us to say, oh, wait, I don't want that anymore. I don't want that. And it allows us to draw a line in the sand for that energy that's been working through us. Whether it's narcissistic energy or addiction energy or fawning energy, I don't want that. That line in the sand is critical for the interference energy to get the boundary and to get out of the field. Sought through prayer and meditation, improve our conscious contact with the divine, praying for knowledge and will. That's what we just did, right? In our inner prayer work. That's why I use these 12 steps for the centering that we did, and having a spiritual awakening and trying to carry this message forward to other people who struggle, because only people with addiction really understand addiction, right? And so that offering it up freely and through seva or service is probably the most profound gift of support and love. And we need community, in my opinion, to heal. So I'd love to spend more time on the spiritual aspects and to take the religion and the he and the God out and really bring it back to, and not to take the God out, but to take the religious trauma out wherever people get like ew about that, to bring it back to our own spiritual awakening and process so that we all can be on the path of recovery. Whether I give too much and I'm recovering from fawning all over everybody, or I abuse what I can get out of relationships, wherever we're addicted to get from someone else or something else. Because once we do that, then we can teach our kids and that next generation. I know that it feels better to check out on TikTok, but I'd like for you to pivot toward yourself and really think about what you might desire in this moment. These are life skills that, in my opinion, may be getting lost. So I invite you to do this work and to destigmatize addiction so that we can generalize it enough to know that this is something we all have to work, and so that we can categorize ourselves if we're in destructive big A addiction and start to work within ourselves, first by admitting that we have addiction and that we might have to live without that substance or that behavioral pattern, maybe for the rest of our lives. So thank you to all of you who showed up today for this practice. I'll be posting this on my YouTube channel. Please spread it far and wide, because I think we do need to update how AA and how addiction and alcohol and drug addiction is, especially with marijuana becoming more legal. I'm seeing this become more and more prevalent everywhere, and redefining and redefining or defining again what addiction is will be an important part of all of our spiritual awakening on this planet. Thank you.